morning, Johto. My name is Lane here at the Goldenrod Radio Tower, bringing you your weekday news for Pokemon Go, Pokemon TCG, and sometimes a little bit of Scarlet and Violet as well. We haven't had a guest on Fridays in a little bit, so I said let's switch it up a little bit and get a guest for Monday. Guest, who are you?
Hello, my name is Matthew. I am the creator and developer of PvPoke, a website for Pokemon Go PvP, and thanks so much for having me on again, Lane.
Absolutely. You're only one of few. I bet there's only two or three, maybe two people, multiple guests, and having you on is great because I think with me getting a majority into the Pokemon community, I think this year for you has been, I feel like when I watch regionals, you're there. You know what I mean? When I see a tournament, how many regionals did you go to this year?
I actually have not been to that many regionals. This year, I went to NEIC in Columbus and the Milwaukee regionals.
But I feel like that's when I see you. And that's another
Okay.
thing, too. I think we talked about for nationals, it was so busy, we didn't know who else was there.
Oh, yeah.
And it was getting out, seeing you, but like just not from like PvPoke website stuff. So, and I wanted to do this as a kind of surprise interview, and I didn't want to tell you anything about it.
Ooh,
Because
okay. Keeping me on my toes.
Well, I do. I didn't want to talk anything about Pokemon because we talk about Pokemon. We talk about you with regionals. I want to know about Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, heck yes. Let's talk about it.
I didn't know this last time. This is not something we talked about. And I was talking with Frag and Wagon the other day about a D&D stream. And I'm like, oh, well, go ahead. Like, what? Tell me about it. And this was just in his chat, whatever. And he's like, oh, with Matthew from PvPoke doing... And I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, I've never seen you talk like this is from us talking other things. I'm like, I've never heard about your D&D show.
Absolutely.
So tell me about your D&D show.
Yeah, we started it. It's been going on a bit over a year now. And I really got back into D&D. I played it in high school and a bit in college, but I really got back into D&D over the pandemic. Not Rob ran a little adventure for us, including, I believe, Fragan. I think, I can't remember if Alpha Phoebe was there or not. Arrow was there, I believe, as well. Kim for the battles, and before Donphan.
Gotcha.
So it was a just really fun session that really got me thinking, oh, I should run a game of my own. So I picked up, let's see, the group consists of Frag and Wagon. Arrow has unfortunately had to step out due to his scheduling.
Gotcha.
But we're going to be getting Enhoff into the mix as well. Alpha Phoebe, Shund OX, and Snooky the DM, who DMs other games that Fragan is in as well. So we've been doing that for a bit over a year now, every Wednesday night, 6:45 Central, and it's been so much fun. I love doing creative stuff, love doing art and game design and storytelling, and Dungeons and Dragons is really like the best combination of all of those things.
Is this a module or is this a homebrew?
Ooh, it's all homebrew.
I know, knowing you and knowing what you were about to say, I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be a homebrew. So can you tell me a little bit about the campaign at all? Like an entry into the campaign?
Sure. We are just wrapping up an adventure in the Feywild, which for those who aren't familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, the Feywild is the realm of fairies. It's a very mystical and tricky place. But the Feywild happens to be under invasion right now from former party members' warlock patron. So Arrow's character used to be pledged to this great old one, eldritch god made of cold iron, which in folklore and Dungeons and Dragons lore, fairies are weak to iron.
Yes.
So the Feywild is currently under invasion by this external force and the party has been trying to expel them, fight against them, and save the Feywilds. So
I know anytime people bring up Feywilds, it's usually just by PTSD, fear of doing anything with the Fey. But this is different, right? Like this is usually, I've not heard of protecting the Feywilds. Usually you're just wanting to get out of whatever you're doing with the Fey at all. And I did, so I knew, I took a guess here. So I watched some of the last stream and I saw what the levels were. And I'm like, yeah, this is about a year into level 14s. That's a while. You are, and I've heard this, and you can tell me for, is it harder to DM with higher levels or work with higher levels like that?
it can be. I've actually found it a lot more interesting from a just encounter design perspective. Just recently, we had a really big, intense boss fight with a storm giant, and just knowing, okay, my party is pretty strong.
I was about to say that, yeah.
I can pull up, like, I can really delve into the fun parts of the monster manual and homebrew like a ton of crazy mechanics and whatever, and
not just a swarm of rats that you hope don't take them out at level 3.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're like, now they're a little squishy, but because I've heard that vice, like with both ways, is like when your party's over 10, they do whatever, right? Like they are basically these powerful beings, and just trying to do the story. But like you're right, like I think that's when people look at all of 5e or what D&D net, whatever it is called now, that looking at it and you see like storm giants and these big things, you're like, well, this would totally a purple worm and stuff, right? Like,
right, yeah.
What party? But when you get up there, you're right. Like you can mess with kind of these like higher power, flashy monsters out of the monster manual. No, that's really. It was one thing that I'm like hearing with PvPoke and with you and everything in between. I'm like, man, I've never heard about this Dungeons and Dragons thing, because we all like Pokemon here, and I wonder how many people stopped when they were like, oh, Pokemon stopped. Well, I'm like, Dungeons and Dragons is one of the easiest things to reskin into anything, right? Like, we've heard around the block, there's Pokemon. I've heard of so many trainer Pokemon ones. I've heard of so many mystery dungeon ones. I've heard of so many different ones that if you've never tried just tabletop in general, I think watching your stream and getting into it on Wednesdays is a good way to, I think like when you talked about during like the COVID times, a lot of D&D rose in numbers. That's when I got into it too. Like just watching it is sometimes as much fun as playing sometimes. And then of course it gets you to, I wonder what it's like. So every Wednesday, so how many sessions? So you've been doing this a year. So you've probably had 50 some sessions with this. That's crazy.
Yeah, we are next week. Wednesday will be our, I believe, 75th session.
That's way more than a year. That's
okay,
more
year and a half.
If my math checks out right. So is there, not a spoiler, but is this ending ever? Do you want this to continue for, are we Critical Role? You going like 100, 200 and something episodes? Like, or is this just whenever everybody's done kind of a situation?
My goal is to get them to level 20, and maybe we have one final like epic level adventure to cap things off. So that's my goal.
I was gonna say after 20, what I don't know what there is to do. Probably like you're throwing multiple storm giants, right? Like I don't
right, like multiverses are gonna be collapsing. It's gonna be insane. I have no idea what's gonna be happening at level 20, but I feel like they should be able to at least play a little bit at level 20 before penning the final chapter.
Well, I will say this has been great learning about Dungeons and Dragons with you, just talking more about behind PvPoke and seeing more of you and everything. So tell me a little bit, what's been your PvP as of late? What have you been Pokemon Go PvPing as of late?
Yeah, I've been doing some battles here and there, mostly in Great League. Just this morning, I was trying out Arctibax, the newly released evolution of Frigibax. It's an ice dragon, kind of fun. It's had some ups and downs. Certainly doesn't want to see Metacham. But besides playing GBL here and there. I've been keeping a very firm watch on the play Pokemon scene and trying to keep the site updated as well on with training analysis and things like that as the season progresses.
Yeah, because I think the site has been doing it. Like, I think we talked right when like Terra Raid started with Scarlet and Violet, and that was like a whole new coming, I guess, from Dynamax. This was like trying to transfer everything over. So looking at PvPoke stuff, I think everybody likes the Great League, like you said, getting ready. Do you have any regionals on your calendar for the future?
I was tentatively thinking Toronto. I don't think that's going to end up happening, unfortunately. So I'll probably be looking to early next year for some of my first regional travels. Don't have any planned yet, but we'll see.
Absolutely. So thanks for coming on for the second time. I wanted to be a little different than the first. Where can everybody find you personally and the site itself?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at PvPoke or X as whatever you decide
Whatever
to call
it is, who knows?
And then the site itself is pvpoke.com. And again, it's just a resource and rankings for Pokemon Go PvP if you want to get some Pokemon or team ideas.
I feel like you're a type of person that would under hype up your own site. It's not just a resource. It is the top resource that people go to. Every GBL person in Twitch, everybody goes to it. It is the best resource out there for GBL. Hype up your thing. You made a great thing. Hype it up. It's great. If you want to hear more Good Morning Johto, you can find us on Twitter/X, whatever we call it, over at GMJ. You can check out our streams over at twitch.tv as well. Thank you so much for coming on. That's it, trainers. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.